It's the first race week of 2021, and by the skin of our teeth, we are back again for another predictions challenge. I've asked my guests a series of questions forecasting the season ahead. Today we'll find out how they think 2021 will play out, and at the end of the year we'll come back and find out just how right or wrong they were and crown another predictions champion. In a slight change of pace, I won't be competing myself, as I've always found it a little weird both running the competition and taking part in it. Luckily I was always so rubbish I never got close to winning, so it never got awkward. But instead I'll be hosting our 4 contestants, who are Jonty of Jonty's Corner, creator of the Predictions Championship trophy and famous for getting big and bold when it comes to predictions. Hello Jonty.
Hello Stuart. Yeah,
feeling confident?
Don't be expecting anything different. I've gone crazy again because 2 years in a row I've done that and it's nearly worked.
It did very nearly work last year. But you were beaten by Sean from the F1 Word, champion of 2020. Much to your own surprise, I think.
Yes, very much so. Quite the shock when that happened. But yeah, very, very happy to be the reigning champion. I'll just say that again, the reigning champion. And totally ready to kick some backside again for this one.
Okay,
possibly my own, but...
You're not feeling the weight of having to repeat your success?
Secretly terrified.
Okay, good. As normal then.
Yes, 100%.
We've also got Dan from Racing Reviews. He was the human champion of 2019, beaten by the audience. But you suffered a bit of a Ferrari-like season last year. Are you ready to get back on top, Dan?
I'm so ready. I'm so ready. I was so disappointed last year. Ferrari let me down big time. But the fact I lost to Sean just made it even worse. So this year, no messing about. No crazy predictions, mainly because Grosjean's not on the grid, so I can't predict him to have a podium this year. But full concentration, Sean's the target, but I want to win. I want to be the first double champion. It's going to happen.
Bring it on.
And joining us this year, Beth from Beth1. It's hard to pronounce that, so you know how it's spelled. If you've seen her videos, you know she's not afraid to spill the tea. Welcome to the competition, Beth. How are you feeling about it all, having answered the questions?
I'm terrified, mainly because I'm representing the girls, the gays, and the Drive to Survive fans, which is the holy trinity, if you ask me. So I feel like I've got a lot on my shoulders. So I'm hoping I do everyone proud.
Well, that's clearly the most popular subsection of F1 Twitter. So.
Exactly.
Brilliant. As always, I have polled people from the Chamber audience and smushed their answers into one collective team response per question. So this year the 4 of you are competing against a hive mind of 6,599 people. No pressure.
Yikes.
They'll be your benchmark. They did beat everyone in 2019, but both Jonty and Sean outscored them last year, so they are very much beatable. It turns out opinions among F1 fans aren't always in alignment. So are you guys ready to get into the quiz and see each other's answers?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nice. Okay, we'll wait for Jonty to be ready.
Oh, no, I'm ready. I just don't want to see my answers.
Okay. And we start this year with Driver of the Day, in which I asked you which driver would amass the most Driver of the Day awards from the official F1 poll. A classic question, this one. Verstappen has won this for the last couple of years, but last year it wasn't a complete runaway. So perhaps the fans we pulled in other directions this year. Let's see what you put. Jonty's gone for Verstappen, as has Sean. Dan, you've gone for Alonso this year. And Beth went right in with the AlphaTauri rookie, Tsunoda. Before I reveal the audience pick, let's go to you, Dan. Alonso, returning 2-time world champion, what makes you think he'll win the vote of the fans for race after race?
It's Alonso. Do I need to say anything else? His team radio alone is going to win him Driver of the Day all year long. And also, I wanted to start bold this year. I'm surprised these two have gone a little bit boring. I'm glad Beth has started off her career in sparkling fashion. Fantastic stuff, Beth. I love to see that. But I think Alonso in that midfield, he's going to cause so many storylines, so many dramas. And I'm liking to think the fans are going to get behind him. So I'm not going to be boring and say Verstappen. I'll leave that for those two.
And of course, we never had Alonso to play with before because we've only done it for 2 years. So he's never been in the field. Beth, you've gone for young Yuki, as yet unproven in F1. So Bold choice.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like Yuki is a bit like Seb, where already everyone is a Yuki fan. And we all seem to love him. And I don't really think he can do much wrong for us. I'm hoping he has a really good rookie season and we're just mesmerised by his performances. And we all reward him with Driver of the Day, which every F1 driver wants in their career.
We'll have yet to see if he angers the fans at some point by driving into Verstappen. I'll quickly reveal that 56% of the audience have gone with Verstappen, somewhat overwhelming. Sean, you've also chosen Verstappen, so you could be the Verstappen representative. Maybe you can explain why he's the dominant pick yet again.
Well, it's the fan base, and I just think that, you know, Dan says it's boring, but this is a competition. You know, want to be winning it. I want some points, and if I can get some easy points, I will. But I think Verstappen, he's going to be up there this year. I don't believe Mercedes, before we get too into that, at all with their problems, but Verstappen will be closer. And if he's winning races and fighting for the title, he's going to have his Dutch army behind him, and then everybody else sort of thinking, we'd quite like a different world champion for a change. And I think he'll end up with a load of driver of the day things, whatever they're called. If only it was written across the screen for me to read. They'll just end up with a load of them from the fans, and yeah, I mean, he's just such a lovely, likeable character as well, isn't he?
No, so I was tempted to put Schumacher. Just because of that comeback story, the colossal Michael Schumacher fan base who want to see Mick do well, but nah. It's too easy to get points from Verstappen, as Sean said.
Good point. I guess we'll see at the end of the year. Let's have a look at the next question. I'm asking you, as I did last year, which team will come fourth in the Constructors' Championship? Last year, this did prove harder than we thought because Ferrari kind of dropped out of the top 5 and the midfield tightened up. But this year, we've got Ferrari who are looking for redemption, Racing Point and Renault transforming into Aston Martin and Alpine, and maybe teams like AlphaTauri getting in the mix more regularly. But let's have a look what you all put. So Jonty's gone for Ferrari. Sean's followed Jonty again with Ferrari. Dan's gone for McLaren. And Beth has also gone for Ferrari. Let's start with Dan as the rogue element here. So while the others think fourth will be the resurgent Ferrari, you think McLaren are going to stumble?
Well, I've tried my best to play the game here because I think McLaren will finish third, but I just couldn't decide who was going to be fourth. So I thought, well, worst case scenario, I'm going to be one position off because McLaren might struggle a little bit, but I don't think they'll be worse than fourth. Whereas Ferrari, Alpine, Aston Martin, even AlphaTauri, any of those, I've probably missed 10 ton of other teams that could finish fourth this year. It's so compact in that midfield. Ferrari, for example, could finish 6th or 7th, how it's going to be this season. So I've tried to play the game a little bit, maybe a little bit more boring, but hey, might get me some points in the long run.
I'll just show you now. 33% of the audience went with Ferrari, so that's their pick. Jonty, is Ferrari the obvious pick for fourth, seeing as only Dan hasn't gone with them?
Well, I'd have thought so, because as Sean said earlier, we know Mercedes aren't telling us everything, and there's a lot of putting on about not being sure about this car. They're definitely quicker than what everyone thinks. Red Bull tend not to get quicker or slower, they just kind of stay there, and McLaren will have gained something from that Mercedes engine. So no matter how much Ferrari regain from that bad engine, McLaren is still going to be that step in front, and I don't think Aston Martin will be doing enough to make up for what Ferrari make up.
Interesting. Let's hope you guys do not get completely blindsided by Ferrari yet again. I'm going to go on to the next question. Similar question. I'm asking you which driver will come 6th in the Drivers' Championship. Quickly, let's look through the answers. Jonty's gone for a returning Alonso. Sean's chosen Leclerc from the obviously 4th placed Ferrari. Dan, you've gone with McLaren's new signing Ricciardo, and Beth, you've picked Sainz, newly at Ferrari. So we've got a mixed bag this time around. Let's start with you, Sean. Leclerc came 8th last year, but you think he'll ride the wave of Ferrari progress, I'm guessing?
Yeah, that Ferrari was interesting last year. It wasn't a good car at all, and what he did in that car I can't remember what. I think he was just shy of 100 points and right in the mix in 8th place. I think he did a fantastic job last year. So if this season that car is even a slight improvement, even if everyone else has improved, I think Charles Leclerc will pick up the points again, end up in a decent 6th place, maybe higher. I'd be surprised, but maybe. But it's Dan's already said it. He's so tight in the midfield. It's a bit of a cliche on my channel at the minute that one good or one bad result could be the difference between finishing 6th in the drivers and 9th.
Yeah, Beth, what made you go for Sainz here? Leclerc's teammate, the other Ferrari. How do you see the championship taking shape?
I am a big believer in Carlos Sainz. I am also a big believer in that I think he will outperform Charles. I really do. And I hope that does happen for me, because otherwise it's going to be a big, big fall from grace. I just take from Carlos that he has had many years in cars which have not been in the top field. They have been midfield cars. And the fact that he's going to Ferrari, which unfortunately at the moment is a midfield team, I feel like he has the expertise to get the most out of the car. So I've got a lot of faith in him.
Jonty, I'm going to try and guess your reasoning here. I'm imagining you foresee Alpine more or less keeping the status quo, but Fernando being that magic ingredient that allows him to sort of outperform the car and take him to 6th place.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
We all know what Fernando can do with any car. We saw it with the absolute dog poo Ferraris, and we saw it with the McLaren Hondas. So if the team stays roughly where it is, the people finishing sort of 5th, 6th, 7th usually are the ones that Alonso's going to be stealing points from. Now, all it takes is a couple of races for someone further up to have a bad one, and he's going to be the person there to steal it.
You see, I think I've got similar feelings to the audience here. I'm confident McLaren are going to be 3rd. And like my last answer, I feel it's going to be the top 2 teams, Mercedes, Red Bull, and then McLaren kind of in their own little bubble, in front of that midfield, but not quite at the top 2. So it was just a flip of the coin. Danny Rick or Lando for 6th. And I was more confident in Ricciardo being 5th or 6th. Maybe Lando could slip back a little bit behind the likes of Alonso, Leclerc and Sainz, like you guys have said. So, again, like last answer, I was trying to just play it safe, really, making sure I either got the full 25 points or 18 points. Because Danny Rick, I don't see him being lower than 6th, but definitely McLaren being that best of the rest, but in front of the midfield team.
Next question. Naturally, not all drivers can make it out of Q1 on Saturday. We always lose 5 drivers in the first part of qualifying. While we have the usual suspects in that group across the whole season, we can see a real mix of cars and drivers caught out or just underperforming. So I asked you to tell me every single driver that would get knocked out in Q1, or at least once. You'll get 5 points for every correct driver, but if you pick an incorrect driver or you miss a driver, you'll lose 3 points apiece. So let's see what you picked. I'll go by one. Jonty's picked everyone from the bottom 3 teams, plus both AlphaTauris, Esteban Ocon, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Jonty, is Max Verstappen a bit of a wild card, or have you got some solid kind of reasoning?
Every year he has a little bit of bad luck, and it's usually around qualifying that screws him up, so he has to start at the back. We've seen it so many times. And for picking so many, I mean, it worked for the podiums last year.
It did. And you think Lando will get caught out too?
Yeah. Again, if there's some tricky conditions or something's going on, he's more likely to get caught out than Daniel.
All right, Sean. The same bottom 6, both AlphaTauris, no Alpines, Lance Stroll, Lando Norris, but Sergio Perez this time instead of Max Verstappen. So Sean, no Alpines in your list, but you seem confident Lance Stroll won't make the cut at least once.
I always thought I would go for Stroll in these things, and I'm not. Just Saturdays, people will pick out weaknesses, I'm sure, but the big weakness for me in Lance Stroll is his Saturdays. It just always is. So, last year's Racing Point was a really good car, massively competitive, and we still saw struggles there at times. So I can see him dropping out at least once. I kind of hope one year I'm going to be wrong and he's going to smash Saturdays and be the best qualifier on the planet for a whole season. But there's just something with Lance about Saturdays that I can't shake, and neither can he. So there you go.
Dan, let's look at yours. You've picked the same bottom 6. You've chosen not to pick Gasly, but have again singled out Stroll. Let's start with Gasly and the testing form of those AlphaTauris. What made you pick Tsunoda?
Tsunoda, I think, is going to have a good year. And I think the AlphaTauri car is going to be more in the mix than people think. I think you've hinted to it there, that testing, they look really good. And certainly my answers throughout the rest of this evening, you will see I have read way too much into testing this year. That's going to bite me at the end of the season. But I think if Gasly can continue even 80% of the kind of drives he was doing last season, I don't see him getting knocked out in Q1 in a normal race weekend. But I do think Williams, Haas and Alfa Romeo once again are going to be so far behind, there's going to have to be utter carnage for anyone else to be knocked out in Q1. So, sorry Yuki, you've gone in there because you're a rookie, and I feel bad for doing that. And I feel even worse now because everyone else has gone Lance Stroll. I thought I was being a bit brave doing that after he had a much better year last season in quali. But like Sean said, the years before just never quite got it around his little finger qualifying, and even last season wasn't really on the pace of Sergio Perez. So maybe it's a bit of a brave one putting Stroll, because I think Aston will still have a good car. But yeah, my rogue pick is Stroll. That sadly isn't particularly rogue.
Let's go Beth. Same bottom 6 again.
Oh,
and then one AlphaTauri and Gasly, one Alpine and Alonso, both Aston Martins, I nearly said Racing Point, and both Red Bulls. Let's talk about this then.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I was literally just looking at my list, and even now I would put more, but I had to rein it in a little bit. I guess the bottom 3 are sort of self-explanatory. The Aston Martins, I just have a feeling that we're just going to have just a funny quali for them. I mean, it's happened beforehand where sort of one person will perform quite well and the other you go, well, what happened? Why are you there? What's happened here? And then Red Bull, things break quite often. And we always get a shock Red Bull out of Q1. And I do think it will happen to at least both of them once. So yeah, I thought, this is one to go bold on. Let me do this.
Beth,
Taking a page from Johnson's book.
Beth there just like, oh, how did we get here? What happened? Sounding more like a Ferrari strategist every day.
Ferrari are lucky I didn't put them here.
Well, speaking of that, have you noticed none of us have picked them, despite 2020?
Well, fingers crossed. I can reveal the audience have also neglected to put any Ferraris in. They put a bit of a flavour, everyone really. Same bottom 6, both AlphaTauris, Ocon and the Astons. They are a little bit more confident about Gasly, Ocon and Vettel. No Red Bulls.
What I will say, the fact that none of those drivers in the bottom 6 have 100%, and some people think that, and no offence to Nicholas Latifi, but there's 1% of people think Latifi isn't going to go out in Q1. That's incredible.
I mean, I'd love to see a Latifi clean sweep straight into Q2 every session.
Now that would be a story.
Right, let's talk teammate wars. For every team, I want you to tell me which driver will score the most points for that team. If they do end up on equal points, I'll just separate them by qualifying at the end of the season. First up, Mercedes. And everybody's gone for Lewis Hamilton here. And to be honest, there's too much to discuss.
Shocked. I'm so surprised.
2% of the audience has gone
Who
very
are
rogue
they?
here.
I want to meet these Bottas.
2%.
I think they're the
2% voted for bottom.
Yes, I think they got inspired by Drive to Survive. So I'll be amazed if any of you are wrong here. So I think we just go straight to Red Bull, in which Jonty breaks ranks and goes for Perez. So Jonty,
Traitor.
tell me your thoughts.
I like Checo. I always have. I've always thought he's been massively, not massively, but he's been often underrated and not given the credit he deserves. And now he's got that real chance at the front in a good car, because we can overlook his McLaren year because it was too soon for him and it wasn't a great car. He's going to silence a lot of people.
Let's have a little look at McLaren. And everybody shifts across to Ricciardo here.
That's a surprise.
I mean, I'm a bit surprised by this. Beth, what made you pick Ricciardo here, and why do you think it was so unanimous? He is the new boy.
Yeah, I just feel like we all want it to happen. I think that's a big factor. I am terrified for Daniel Ricciardo and the horror that he's missed the boat again, like he did going to Renault rather than choosing McLaren. So I'm thinking if I manifest it, he will have a good year, and hopefully this is the right choice. I don't doubt that Lando will be close to him, but I just think Daniel will have the upper edge.
Let's look at Aston Martin next. And everybody slides across the mess.
Oh, Lance, no.
Poor Lance, he's getting a bit of a rollicking in this, isn't he?
I was tempted. Believe me, I was tempted just for the meme factor. Because I do genuinely like him.
Let's talk about this then, John. So this is, again, everybody's gone for the new signing. Vettel has struggled a bit in the last couple of years. It does seem quite unanimous, but it can't have been that easy a choice, can it?
As Sean's mentioned before, it's those Saturdays. The Saturday lets throttle down so much. When it's dry, when it's wet, he comes into his own. And he does have a knack of making up the places on the first couple of laps of the race, but he leaves himself with so much work to do. He's always going to lose out on strategy as well because of that.
Let's have a little look at Alpine. And
Oh my god.
once again, everybody goes to the new signing. Dan, let's go to you. Fernando's been out of F1 for a couple of years now. He is banging on 40, and some might say not the ideal team player. Nonetheless, I kind of agree. He's where you put your money, isn't he?
Yeah, no, I feel so bad for Esteban because he's not a terrible driver. It's just Danny Rick thrashed him last season, and I think it'll be closer between these two than it was Ocon and Danny Rick last season. But in a year where I think this team are going to struggle a little bit in that midfield, I think Alonso will get the nod on strategy, and it's Fernando. You just know he's going to bring that bit of star quality to the team, and we'll just edge it. I don't think it'll be much, but yeah, I do feel bad about this one. Poor Esteban.
All right, let's have a little look at the Ferrari boys then. And this time, we have a split. Sean, Dan, and 92% of the audience think Leclerc will lead this team. Jonty and Beth go with the new boys Sainz. Sean, very strong audience polling for Leclerc, but the group is split. What made you go for Leclerc?
Sainz is going there as, I don't want to say number two. Number two kind of just puts the idea in your head of a Barrichello or a Massa. I don't mean like a number two like that, but he's going there as their second driver. That's Leclerc's team. He's got, as Drive to Survive has confirmed, the longest contract in Ferrari history. They've done that for a reason. So I can see this ending up in a little bit of a kind of the same way Red Bull have with Verstappen, build the team around Leclerc and put a lot of focus on him. And although I think Sainz will be quick and will be fairly close to him and give him a proper run for his money, if he has got an inferior car or an inferior upgrade package to his teammate at some weekends, that's going to hit him hard over the course of the season in, again, a really tight midfield. So I just can't see Sainz beating him this year, but by picking Leclerc, I'm in no way saying, please don't kill me, Beth and Jonty, that Carlos Sainz is going to be destroyed by him, because I don't think he will be.
Beth, I'll go to you in the Sainz club. Now, Ferrari did bin off a 4 times world champion to swap in Sainz, so they must be expecting something pretty good from him. And you're hoping for kind of even more than Leclerc.
Yeah, this is one of my big bold predictions that not a lot of people like me for, is that I genuinely think he's going to beat Leclerc. And oh boy, the fireworks if it happens. It's why it should happen. So I've got to back him. I really do. Purely for the storyline, if nothing else.
All right. AlphaTauri then. Strong support for Gasly. Now, having seen the answer so far, Beth, I'm not surprised you've stuck with Tsunoda here. But he's now up against an experienced race-winning teammate. Is this from the heart?
Yes, but also no.
Okay, we'll see.
you take one look at Yuki's career and you see how quickly he adapts to a new car and a new series. It's insane, and I don't see any reason why he won't continue to do that in F1. And I think people are looking forward to him. I know he's going to produce some good results, but I don't think they're expecting banger results. I feel like I have replaced the Grosjean element of these predictions with Yuki.
Well, I'm glad we're not missing that particular wildcard. Well, on that note, let's get Dan to represent the Gasly camp in this sense. How easy was this, the decision to weigh up?
So easy. Beth, you're so wrong. Yuki's rubbish.
No!
It's nice being on this side of the table, being able to bash the fanboy. That's great. No, I think Gasly's... I said it earlier, he was so good last year. If he's even a fraction of the driver this season, he's going to be great. I think that car is going to be better than people think. He's been at this team for 3 seasons now, 2 in a row. I just think it's going to be such a mountain to climb for Yuki to get near him. I think Yuki will be quick, but I think you've got to give him that little bit of time to settle into the car. And yeah, I just think Gasly's going to have another mega season.
All right, let's look at the Alfa Romeos. Sean, Dan and Beth have all picked Gio. Jonty, you've stuck with Raikkonen. They did get equal points last year. Can he keep on top of Antonio in a season in which he will turn 42?
Yeah, I think he will. Gio did well last year, a lot better than he has done in previous years, but Kimi proved several times that if he really feels up to it, he can just still destroy half the field no matter what car they're in. Yeah, he really has still got it, he's just got to want it, which is the only difficult factor with him.
Let's move on to the black sheep of the field, Haas. And this time it's Sean who's been left on its own. Let's talk about this, Sean. You are... the thing is, Sean, you are an infamous Schumacher Senior fan. But this season, you suspect the younger Schumacher might be beaten by his teammate?
Yes, and you've just given me a way out. I didn't want anybody accusing me of bias. No. Honestly, talking strictly about what's happened on track and what he's done in his career, Nikita Mazepin is seriously quick. There's no doubt about that. I don't know, I'm not saying he's quicker than Schumacher, but he is seriously quick. And one thing he is, I don't know if you've noticed, but quite aggressive. And when he's on, he's very good at being aggressive to the line, but he's also very, very good at being aggressive over the line. But in a very, very tight back of the pack where, Williams and Haas won't be separated by much, maybe the Alfa Romeos will be in there as well. If there is a crazy race and there's a chance to score points, what you need is an aggressive driver who will go for an overtake and won't think twice. And in that situation, Mazepin might be the one. As crazy as he might make the move and slam it into somebody and stick it in the wall, but he might also sling it up the inside, pull out a mega move and grab a 10th place for Haas. So it's a bit of a wild card. I will sit here all day long and tell you that Mick Schumacher is the better driver. There's no doubt about that. But Mazepin is quick and a bit of aggression in a very, very close back of the pack fight, and he might just nick a point, and it will be a point or two at Haas. There'll be nothing in it at all.
Okay, and finally in this group, let's look at Williams. And this
Shock.
is basically exactly as strong as people felt about Hamilton in Mercedes. Dan, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I think despite Russell, I think probably arguably being the stronger driver, I say points are going to be tricky to come by all year, and they're maybe more in the hands of maybe luck than skill than for teams higher up the grid. We saw Kubica grabbing Williams' only points in the last couple of seasons due to the German Grand Prix just being an absolute chaos fest.
Qualifying was the big one. I feel awful that this is the second time I'm going to be bashing Latifi tonight, so sorry Latifi fans out there. But I think George, he's got such a big season on his hands this year. Even if Mercedes keep Hamilton and Bottas, George knows he's got a chance at that seat next season. He's got to prove himself all season long. And last year, he got through to Q2 more than he went out in Q1. I can see him picking up a few points this year. It's going to be difficult in that Williams, and I think, like the Haas boys just a moment ago, I think all of them are going to be a draw. So it doesn't really matter who you're picking, really. But if I was going to put my money on either of them, I would go George.
All right, let's move on to a question that is becoming an old classic. Tell me every driver that will get on the podium this year. Same points as before, 5 points for every correct answer, minus 3 points for every incorrect or driver you missed. Let's start with Jonty, who 2 Mercs, 2 Red Bulls, 2 McLarens, 2 Aston Martins, just Alonso, and then both Ferraris and both Alpha Tauris. As usual, Jonty, you've gone with quite a large number of picks. Expecting much of the same this year?
Yeah, I'd say the first 6 are pretty much slam dunk and obvious. And of the rest, the only thing that really stung me last year was not picking enough.
Yeah.
I mainly lost points on the surprise podiums that I hadn't picked. So I made a point in picking them.
Not Ocon, though.
No, because I have a strong suspicion that whenever there is an opportunity of them getting a podium, he's likely to be sacrificed in favour of Alonso.
Sean. Same top 8, but just Alonso and Leclerc outside of that. Talk me through these tactics.
That's boring, isn't it? God. Tactics, Christ. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I just don't. I think last season was a one-off. By the way, if F1 wants to prove me wrong on that, that's absolutely flipping fine. It was fantastic. But I think it was a one-off, so the chances of us seeing your Gaslys and co on the podium again, and I just don't see it. I think it will be a more standard season. It'll be close in the midfield, but I think McLaren, I'm kind of with Dan, not that they're going to be in their own little fight, but I think they will be very much third, maybe challenging further up, so I can't see how an Alpha Tauri or anything like that is going to bag a big surprise. And when it comes to Alonso, it's a line I use a lot this year. You just never quite know with Fernando, do you? And he is the kind of driver that, as John said earlier, can just take an average car or a bad car and pull out a mega result. And I can just see, I'd be surprised if he's not on the podium at least once this year, but I'm very confident, which I kind of like, about Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren and Aston. I think they're pretty much shoo-ins for podiums this year.
Dan, now you've played it very lean. Just the Mercs, Red Bulls, McLarens and 1 Ferrari and Leclerc.
Yeah, King Boring's back here for a minute. I tried not to get too carried away after last season, because last year was so good, but pretty much every year, I'd say maybe since 2016, we had maybe 1 or 2 midfield podiums. And again, I think those top 3 teams will be the top 3 teams. I don't think anyone's arguing those. I'm sure Beth and the audience have agreed with those top 6. And then apart from that, I really struggled to decide who was going to be that 4th place slot. So I threw in Charles Leclerc. I couldn't remember if I threw in Giovinazzi, to be honest. Don't ask me why. I was sat there panicking for a minute. So if you want to pop that in, great. But don't take away my point. So yeah, a little bit more boring again. But I still think, if we have those top 6 plus a Leclerc on the podium, we can still have a great season. And I generally think the fight for the title this year will be the big story, rather than all of these midfield teams fighting for third. All
right, fair enough. Let's have a little look at Beth's. Will there be a Tsunoda in this list? There he is. So you've gone at as numerous as Jonty, I think, here, but you've gone both Alpines and swapped to Gasly for a Tsunoda.
Yes.
Here. So actually, are you expecting quite a strong midfield this year?
Absolutely. I think I've chosen 13 there. I believe we had 13 podium people last year.
Yeah.
I don't see this year being much different to last year. It should still be just as competitive, just as tight, hopefully just as manic. Hence why I've gone for 13 people. Pierre, I didn't put because he was only on the podium for his win. And I love Pierre. Not as much as I love Yuki, but I do love Pierre. But unfortunately, I don't think a podium is quite there for him. But for Yuki, yeah, sure.
Right, let's have a quick look at the audience before we move on. These are where the 100% are coming in. Both Mercedes and Verstappen 100%. It was like 99.9, 99.8. So there are still some people who didn't predict Hamilton, Bottas, or Verstappen. Love to live in their world. Yeah, most people most marginal to be on the podium, as predicted by the audience. Stroll, Alonso, Sainz. Let's go to the next round. The top 6 after 6 round.
I hate
Very simple.
this.
This always gets fun.
I just want you to tell me who the top 6 in the championship, the Drivers' Championship, is after 6 rounds. Jonty thinks Hamilton will be leading, followed by Verstappen. Then Ricciardo and Perez. Bottas merely 5th. And Vettel showing form for Aston in 6th. I'll run through everyone here so you can all compare to each other. Sean, Hamilton, Verstappen top 2. Then Perez as the strong Red Bull rear gunner ahead of Bottas. And he puts Ricciardo lower in 5th, followed by Alonso in the Alpine. Dan thinks Verstappen's going to be leading the way with Hamilton chasing him. Again, he thinks Perez will lead Bottas, Ricciardo 5th, and Lando in 6th. Beth has also gone for Verstappen in the lead, followed by Hamilton. Like Jonty has put Ricciardo 3rd, Perez 4th, Bottas 5th, and she's put Alonso in that 6th place. The audience goes for a different mix again. Hamilton, Verstappen, the only people to put Bottas ahead of Perez, and then Ricciardo and Norris. Let's go to Dan first. Verstappen in the lead.
Yeah, reading too much into testing again, I think. Yeah, a bit of a theme this year, I think. Red Bull looks so good. They look so good in winter testing. And I think these first 6 races, I believe it includes Monaco. It includes Bahrain, of course, where Verstappen wasn't too bad at the end of last year. Spain, he's won there before. I just had a really good feeling about Max this year. And I think Hamilton will struggle a little bit. Perez might just have the edge over Bottas. And then, once again, I've got my traditional McLaren just in behind. So, nothing too crazy about the rest of them. But I think Max will just edge Lewis a little bit.
Now, Beth. Like Jonty, you've put Bottas in quite a low 5th position, and actually you've put both Mercedes drivers lower than we're used to seeing them. So how do you see these opening races play out?
Bottas I've quite frankly had enough of. I think that's the nicest way I can say it. I think him versus Perez as second drivers this season, oh boy, that's going to be good. Because if Perez can bring it, Bottas is going to be sweating. He's going to be on the struggle bus, which is why I have him as low as 5th here.
Sean, I'd say you've arguably gone with maybe the most conservative approach here, but crucially, you think Perez will have the margin on Bottas.
I'm sorry. That was freaking savage, Beth. I love it. Channeling my inner thoughts there. Thank you for that, Beth. Red Bull are definitely closer. I'll say it again, Mercedes are not that slow. There's just no way. I'm not falling for it. I refuse to fall for it. But Red Bull are clearly a lot closer. So I think on raw speed, Perez is quicker than Bottas. It might take him a little bit of time to get up to speed. So this is probably where I've maybe made a big mistake because he said that it'll take 5 races to get up to speed. Well, he's going to need a big result at Monaco, isn't he, if this is to come true, if that's all true. So, I just think Red Bull, they're going to be right up there. Usually, when Mercedes needs to sacrifice a driver on strategy or anything, it tends to be Bottas. But also, Checo, I think, will do what Albon and Gasly couldn't do, and that is back Red Bull up on strategy, which means they'll have more options with Verstappen, and they're likely to therefore use him to undercut the Mercedes more. And again, usually the second Mercedes on the road is Bottas, and he's the one that's probably going to get picked off in that strategy, if any of that makes sense. So I can see Perez snatching those points from Bottas, which actually could really give us a spicy championship if we've got one Red Bull taking points off of Mercedes.
Let's have a look at the next question, in which I want you to, in a kind of flip reversal of a question I asked last year, I want you to pick the most unreliable teams. I want you to pick 3 teams, and every one of their DNFs will get you 5 points. Okay, let's just lay them all out. Jonty's gone Aston, Alpine, Haas. Sean's gone Alpine, Ferrari, Haas. Dan's gone Aston, Ferrari, Haas. And Beth has gone Alpine, Ferrari, Haas. The audience sided with Dan here. Aston, Ferrari, Haas. Haas getting 36% of all votes and 100% representation among all of you. So Sean, not a massively mixed bag. Perhaps you can shed light on the overwhelming consensus on Haas.
I mean, it's them, isn't it? They've kind of come out and just sort of gone, we're not developing this car, essentially writing this season off. So if they get to Bahrain next week and they've got a reliability problem that they can't solve, then are they going to bother to put to? I mean, I'm sure they will try and fix it, but are they going to put that much time into it? I don't know. I'll be honest, I was very split on this one, because there was a bit of me that thinks what I've just said, they could be unreliable, and if they're not developing the car, then maybe they'll struggle as well. But also, remember Williams 2019, didn't they both cars finished the first 14 races or something like that, being cut adrift at the back? So there's a little bit of me that was thinking maybe Haas will do the same, but I did pick Mazepin to score more points, so I better stick them there. But yeah, I just think you've got an aggressive driver as well. Some days that'll work, other days that's going to be an accident and you've got a DNF. So I think it is just looking at things realistically and saying, yeah, if they're not bothered, frankly, why should we be? That's what I'm going to say. If they're not bothered, why should we be?
Whoa. Now, Ferrari is the next most popular pick. Beth, do you expect this to be breakdowns or accidents?
Charles Leclerc likes to crash sometimes, doesn't he? I think
First shade on Leclerc we've had today.
I don't think a lot of people pick it up as much as they should. Whenever there's sort of a crash with Charles, he's usually taking his teammate out. He reminds me of a lesser young Max in some ways, where I do think he has a lot of maturing to do, and his crashes make that clear in some cases.
Right, Jonty, you've chosen not to pick Ferrari, but you have gone with Alpine. So what kind of year do you see for them that might compromise their finishing rate?
I was actually playing the game here, because you'll see there is one representative of each available power unit apart from Honda, because Honda have been
So there is.
improving a great deal. Of the Mercedes units, again, as Sean keeps saying, I don't buy it from Mercedes. Yes, there was unreliability issues at testing, but there also was for Aston Martin, and curiously McLaren and Williams didn't have them.
All right, let's move on to the fun round, which is get Yuki's points.
Yay!
Last year we did this with science. This year I want you to pick 5 races from the calendar and collect all of Yuki Tsunoda's points from those races. Let's have a look at all of them, and then I'll come back to a couple of you. So Jonty's gone Monaco, Netherlands, Italy, Singapore and Japan. Sean, Bahrain, Imola, Austria, Russia and Japan. That is the official flag of Imola. Dan, Imola, Monaco, Singapore, Japan and Brazil. Beth's gone with Bahrain, Austria, Britain, Belgium and Italy. And the audience went Bahrain, Imola, Austria, Italy and Japan. So I guess the first thing I want to say is 3 of you, the audience included, chose Bahrain, which is Tsunoda's first ever race, as one of his highest scoring races of the year.
And what?
So, Sean, I'm going to go to you first because you've also chosen his second race. So presuming you're thinking he's going to go straight in, guns blazing and mop up in the first 2 races.
World champion, guaranteed.
Yes.
Imola, 100% going to be the best weekend for AlphaTauri. That was my thinking behind Bahrain. It's just come to me. Here we go. It's a good point, I promise.
All right.
They left testing, as they fall into Dan's trap, looking very, very strong. Some even saying possibly the 4th fastest team. Other teams around them will develop more quickly than they will. So I think early on in the season, AlphaTauri is their best chance to get points on the board. And Imola, to get back to my other point, they were incredible there last year. Possibly the 3rd fastest, I would argue, that weekend. And I think it's basically the same car, but better. So I can see them picking up massive points there. And I often, random point, I guess, but I often wonder what Gazzy would have done in Imola last year if he'd not retired with that mechanical issue. Could they have nabbed a podium? Because Danny Kvyat was 4th or 5th. Was he 4th? Somewhere around there. So I'm feeling good for Yuki early doors this season.
John T, maybe you can just give us a little quick overview of your thoughts. I've got nothing in particular to pick on.
Yeah, Monaco, Singapore, things tend to happen quite a bit and there's a good chance for people to pick up surprise podiums. Netherlands, we've never been there. And with all that banking, God knows what's going to happen. Italy, that team seemed to have a history there. Gasly, Vettel. And then Japan, I want a Kobayashi story.
Yeah, same.
That's purely from the heart. I just want him on that podium there. Just for the reactions. It'll be magical scenes.
I find it interesting that Beth, you don't want that home glory for old Yuki.
Well, I did use a tactic here. Not just me loving this small boy. I actually looked at where Yuki was strong in Formula 2 last year. Right. Yeah, I decided let's see where Yuki clearly has confidence, where Yuki has had great performances in the past, and let's try to map that onto his Formula 1 career.
Dan, maybe a tricky question, but did anything in particular stand out as an obvious choice?
100% Imola. Very much on the same board as Sean there. They were so good last year. And Brazil. I'm surprised I'm the only one that's gone for Brazil. What a carnage race we always get there. Last time we were there, Toro Rosso as they were on the podium. P2, outdragged the Mercedes. Why not again? So yeah, Brazil, I'm very surprised I'm the only one throwing that one on the board.
Right, let's move on to the penultimate round, which is a sort of true or false round. I'm going to make a series of statements about the year ahead, and you just have to tell me if they'll come true or not by the end of the season. Firstly, they've come last for 3 years in a row, but with Haas doing the bare minimum work, as we've discussed this year, can Williams finish ahead of them? And everyone thinks yes.
Yay!
Dan, are you as surprised as I am at how unanimous this is?
Not really.
Okay.
Haas just seemed terrible, and I hate to say it as a former fan, but there's just no positive stories coming out of that team, especially with the car this season. But I understand why they're moving to 2022. That's going to be their big break. So any kind of carnage at the front, I see Alfa Romeo and Williams picking up those points. And even if Haas are in position, again, they've got a few crashy boys there, and I think there could be tears.
Right, next question. Bottas, will he beat Verstappen in the championship? The Drivers' Championship? Nobody thinks so.
Oh, wow.
John T, open and shut case?
Pretty much. How many times has he beaten Verstappen in the championship?
I mean, my memory's bad. It's at least one. I remember last season, one.
Well, oh no, I suppose the question should be how many times has he come second in the championship?
He only just beat Verstappen last year, and if you think about the result that Verstappen was on for in Austria, for example, but then you could argue that for Bottas, in that car he should have been gone. He should have been gone. It shouldn't have been in a competition, and well, yeah. I feel like we're saying the same thing again, so I'm just going to shut up.
I suppose that's easy enough. We'll go straight on to the next one. Silverstone has fan attendance, and you've all gone true. I mean, they are selling tickets, and if all goes to plan, the UK will be 4 weeks into their back to normal by then. So, Sean, a bit of a shaky topic, I guess, but are you feeling more confident this year that F1 will be able to welcome back crowds by the time we get to Britain?
Oh, I wasn't until I watched the news today, and now I'm just a bit bummed out again. But yeah, no, I think there'll be fans there, but I'd be very surprised if it's the full 250,000, 300,000 across the weekend. I know it's open air and all that, but I think there'll still have to be an air of caution with it all, and it might end up being one of those things where you have to have your vaccine certificate or whatever they're going to give people for attendance. So I think we'll see fans. I'm optimistic we'll see fans, but I'd be very surprised if we see the big numbers that we usually see. Might see something sort of where the players are on the bench, you've kind of got use this seat, don't use this seat, don't use this seat. It's a social distancing in the stands, I think we'll see, but I don't think it'll be full attendance. But yeah.
Right, let's try and get a question where people don't all agree with each other. Will Hamilton retire? Everyone except Beth thinks he'll carry on. So I'll go to Beth. What makes you think Hamilton is likely to walk away at the end of the season?
Because it's hard enough to do what he's already done, right? The amount of things that you need to go your way to get 7 world titles, on top of being talented enough, is insane. I have absolutely no doubt that he is going to get 8 this year, despite what Red Bull are trying to throw at us. I don't think Lewis is going to look at the sport and think there is more I can do. With the new regulations coming in, I think it serves as the best gateway for him to say, there's nothing left for me to do here.
Let's look at the next question, which is McLaren winning a race. They've had a shocking few years, but they really pulled it together in the last couple, and they now got Mercedes power. And everyone except Dan thinks they will win a race. So let's go to Dan as the outlier. What keeps you erring on the side of caution?
How boring have I been this year? Again, I'll go back to it. I just generally think Red Bull versus Mercedes is going to be the story. And I think those 4 drivers, Hamilton, Bottas, Perez and Verstappen, will all be swapping wins all season long. So McLaren, they might get a couple of second places maybe, but I think that top step still a little bit too far away unless there's a carnage weekend.
Yeah, but I think McLaren will still be that 3rd spot. I don't think Ferrari are going to make the big jump 6th to 3rd. That's a big ask, but I'm genuinely shocked at Dan not picking him. Actually, that actually threw me. First one's probably thrown me, but I just think there was a lot of concern about the integration of the Mercedes power unit. They look like they've absolutely nailed that. They've got something going on with the diffuser, which I think is very exciting, even though I'm not that technical. I've just got a good feeling, and Danny Rick in that car as well. Lando Norris is constantly improving. Yeah, I'm confident they'll win a race.
All right, next question is which I asked that Alonso scores more points than Ricciardo did in that same seat last year, and Ricciardo scored 119, so that's the target. And only Jonty thinks he will manage that. So you've been championing Alonso through this whole video. What else could you say?
I think so. I'm probably the person here who likes Alonso the least, which is quite weird, but you can't deny his abilities. And he's always going to be up there. Like I said, whatever question it was earlier, he's going to be stealing points from the top team members who trip over each other.
And for the final question of this section, well, the Red Bull teams have struggled to maintain consistency among their drivers for a while, but will they manage to keep all 4 of their drivers in the same seats through this season and into the next one? And now we have quite an even split. Jonty and Sean say they will. Dan and Beth say they won't.
Wow.
And just 51% of the audience say they will. So it's pretty knife edge. Let's go to you, Sean. Tough question?
No. Max Verstappen ain't going anywhere. We know that. They're not going to boot Pierre Gasly out mid-season unless maybe we get a Sainz situation that we had a few years ago, where maybe if Ocon struggles, Alpine go and buy him out of that contract or whatever. I don't see that happening. I think Yuki Tsunoda is going to have a good season, and not just because Beth's here. I genuinely think he is going to have a good season, but I don't think he's going to be that. I'm hoping that Helmut Marko has learned from the fact that if you rush up young drivers too quickly, they're not all going to be a Max Verstappen, and that it'll just give him the time he needs. And I don't see, and it's very different this year as well, because they're not. Perez is signed for Red Bull Racing. He's not contracted as a young driver, and he's not come through the ranks, so he is under contract to the end of this season. So I can't see them having as easy a time swapping drivers around as they have in the past, and I just don't. I mean, it's quite clear they don't want Gasly back. I have no idea why, but they just don't want him back, and I hope he goes on to find something better, because he's better than that and he deserves better than that.
So my other big prediction for this year Is that Pierre's going to leave F1?
Oh.
Because I don't buy this hype about him moving to Alpine. Why would you replace a French driver with a French driver? Doesn't make sense to me. And
Because he's a better French driver.
yeah. Okay, I see your point, but I'm going to continue. And we have 3 juniors in F2 this year fighting for that AlphaTauri seat. And they could very much do a Yuki and really prove themselves. And Helmut Marko will go, yeah, you're the next one. Pop them in there. And yeah, that's why I don't think it's going to stay the same. I hope it does, for Pierre's sake. And I hope I look like Boo Boo the Fool. But that is my... that's my killer prediction for this year. I'm sorry.
It's bold.
I'm also going to sit here now quite openly and say this is my Lewis Hamilton question for this year. I read it as Red Bull and AlphaTauri maintain all 4 drivers until 2022 in the same seats. So I thought you meant was there going to be a mid-season driver swap, hence my explanation. So anybody listening, I'd not lost the plot, I just didn't read the freaking question properly again. And that changes my answer completely. But anyway, there you go.
Staying on brand. That's 3 years out of 3.
I know. Sean learned to read.
Okay, we're going to move on to the last round, which I think is possibly the trickiest round. We'll see. Quite a little bit of explanation. After the season is complete, I'm going to poll my audience to find out what they thought about the year they just watched. And all you have to do is predict what percentage of the audience will give a certain answer. Here's how the points are going to work. I'll ask a question like, should Alonso have stayed retired, yes or no? And I will want you to tell me how many people said yes in percentage. So let's say Jonty predicts 55%. If the actual answer is 55%, then Jonty will get a full 25 points. If Dan predicted 70%, he'll get 25 points minus the difference. So 70 is 15 away from 25, so he'll get 25 minus 15, 10 points. Now if Sean predicts 45% of people will say yes, well, he gets no points because he didn't predict which side of the 50% the answer would fall in. So you've got to be right and close to the actual answer. So good luck. This is simple and not overly complicated at all. Let's go straight to the question. The first one was sprint qualifying. Was it a success, yes or no? This is how you answered. So everybody on the no side, a couple of clusters. Dan's the lowest at 18, so I guess I'll turn to you. You seem fairly confident the audience won't respond well to sprint qualifying, which probably being trialled this year.
Yeah, my big issue with it is I think it's a great idea in theory, but I think the way they are currently planning on setting it up will still end up with a Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas 1, 2, 3, or Perez in there. I don't think the result will change that much, and I think the race will end up getting on a Sunday will still be very similar. So I still think the idea, if they tweak it from now until we actually get it, and if we get some kind of reverse grid somewhere, great. But the plans they've got in place at the moment, I'm not too sure it's going to work.
Okay, I'm going to go straight on to the next question, which is actually a sort of standby question because they haven't fully definitely agreed to do these sprint qualifying trials. So just in case they don't, I will ask a separate question, which is, do you wish we'd managed to trial sprint qualifying? Do you wish you'd seen that? Yes or no? Bit more split this time. Quite a lot of you sort of hovering around the 50% line. In fact, Dan, you are on 50. But maybe I'll go to Jonty as the outlier, who is very much no, essentially.
I'm not. But 90% of what you see on all across social media, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all YouTube comments, it's overwhelmingly against the idea. So if it doesn't happen, this is what I think we'll get. And how are you working out Dan?
I made a note about this. That gives you a massive spread. So I think, Dan, you have to tell me which side you think it'll be on, above 50 or below 50. So you can have a side.
Okay, I didn't expect this. I'll stick with Jonty. I'll go below 50.
Okay, so sort of 49.9 kind of situation.
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
That's in the notes. Okay, on to the next proper question. So, imagining the hindsight of 2021 gone by, were Aston Martin right to swap Perez and put Vettel in his seat? We have another little clump with Jonty, Sean and Dan in the audience gathering sort of between 37 and 45. Beth, you're the strongest to come down on the sort of no end of the scale, so maybe you can tell us why you think the people will come out of this year thinking Aston should have held on to Perez.
Because Checo is great.
I mean, that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I just think he more than proved himself last season. He will continue to prove himself this season. I think he'll continue to prove himself until he eventually leaves the sport, whenever that will be. Vettel, I would love for him to have almost like a redemption arc from Ferrari. I would love to see it. But am I entirely convinced? The answer is no.
Next question. At the end of the season, will the audience feel that 23 races was too many, just right, or too few? And I'm looking for how many people said too many. Spread on both sides of the aisle now. Dan and Sean at one end, Jonty and Beth at the other. Let's start with Dan. Just 27% will think 23 races is too many.
Yeah, I think most Formula One fans, especially some of the more casual ones, don't always think of the bigger picture with Formula One. They just see it as a race on telly on Sunday. So I think most people will say just right. I think most people won't really notice the difference between 17 races, 23 races. So, yeah, 75 and 72, that's massive. Nowhere near that thinking.
Because the last two races are Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi.
That's what I was thinking.
We all know Abu Dhabi sucks and we all hate it and it's crap every year. Saudi Arabia also looks awful. It really does. They can throw as many fastest gimmicks as they want and invent 1,000,001 corners that aren't there. But it still looks like it's going to be absolutely terrible. There is no overtaking points. No proper ones anywhere. So it's going to be a true procession.
Moving on. I was really impressed this year, I was really impressed or disappointed or unsurprised this year by Ferrari's performance, and I'm looking how many people were impressed by Ferrari's performance. Quite a spread again, but Sean, you're the only one who is on the other side of that 50%. You think 62% of people will be impressed by what Ferrari bring this year.
Yeah, because it can't be any worse than last year, surely. Flash forward 9 months and they're 10th in the championship. But yeah, it can't be any worse. I think a lot of people, certainly in my quite a few people in my comment section, people I see on social media, think that Ferrari are going to have a really bad year again and they'll be looking at around 6th, 7th place. So if they end up 4th, which is where I'm predicting they will be, then I think there'll be a few people that go, oh yeah, I'm quite impressed. I'm more surprised, I suppose, than impressed. I'm not expecting many people, apart from the Tifosi, to be like, yay, what a great season. It'll just be like, oh, they weren't that bad. 63 feels right to me, but having seen everybody else's answers, especially Dan's, I feel like I'm a mile off now.
Well, let's go to you, Dan, right down at the other end. You think very few people will be actively impressed?
I just think impressed is a strong word, especially when you're talking about Ferrari. I feel most people still just expect them this year to be 4th. Or, bad year last season, surely they'll be back this season. So impressed, I feel for them to be impressive this year, they need to be 3rd. Or at least close with McLaren in my kind of top 3 teams that I'm thinking this year. So I think most people will go unsurprised. I think they'll kind of be in that midfield, so I feel that'll dominate these 3. Disappointed, well, we're always disappointed with Ferrari in one way or another. So, yeah, I'm surprised I'm so far away on my own, but impressed. I just think people have such high standards for this team, rightly so. But I think, yeah, overall they'll disappoint a little bit.
All right, let's move on to the very last question of the whole game, which of this, and also this polling thing. Hopefully an optimistic beat. 2021 was a great season for Formula One. Yes or no? I think we're all hoping for yes. And I'm very pleased to see everyone optimistically predicting we'll think it's a good year. John T tied with the audience at sort of the lower end, 68%. Dan, I've obviously got to come straight to you. 100%. Yes.
It's got to be done. The whole way through, I was looking at my answers and I thought, I've gone so conservative this year. So I thought the last few, let's just absolutely send it. And hey, if I'm right, then that's fantastic. If everyone thinks this season was a great year, it's got to be one of the best of all time. So, yeah, very much heart overhead here. Yeah, but I mean, Beth, your answer's still great as well. Even if it's 85, that's a mega year. But you've got to send it at some point.
And that is all of the questions. Quite a mixed bag of opinions and bravery. I'm just going to wrap it up, turning quickly to each of you and ask how confident you're feeling now you've seen everything laid out. Might as well stick with the same order. John T, you've gone bold as usual.
Well, in previous years, the boldness has almost worked, and it was the lack of extra boldness that stuffed me on the points, particularly for the podium questions, and with the extra similar question for Q1. Yeah, go big or stay at home, because that's where I'm sitting.
Sean, you got a crown to hold on to. Now you've seen where everyone's placed themselves. You've misread a question. How are you feeling?
All in all, 100% successful trip. No, I have no confidence now, I'm afraid. It's gone. The crown's gone.
How quickly they fall.
I'm devastated.
And you'll get it soon. You'll actually get it soon as well, I promise.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what's going to happen. Lockdown lifts, I finally get my hands on the trophy. The next day we do the results and I've got to give it straight to somebody else. Can't even sit on my shelf for a year.
Dan, now I've seen, like, you are very serious now. You've locked in your game playing. You've given us a lot of thought. Now you've seen everyone else. Confident?
I'd like to think so. I'm still stung from last year, saying Grosjean would get a podium, Ferrari would be fighting for the title. That killed me inside. So I've been a little bit more boring this year, but anything to beat these guys, and especially a rookie, it's got to be done this year. So yeah, pretty confident.
And speaking of the rookie competitor, Beth, how was it for you? You texted us to say how stressed you were just filling out the questions.
Yeah, I was really stressed. If Yuki could have a good season, that would be great. I think that's half my battle won. But yeah, I'm feeling okay. I'm sure these words will turn around and bite me come December. But at the moment, I'm feeling okay. So I'm happy with that.
Well, I think if history is anything to go by with Dan, putting a lot of stock in one driver will sometimes work and sometimes very much not work. So I think that, unlike Grosjean, we're all hoping Yuki has a really good season. So we're all behind you. Well, that was it. That just leaves me to say very, very, very thank you. Wow, did I really like that?
Very, very thank you.
Very thank you to everyone. Very thank you, John T. Very thank you, Sean. Very thank you, Beth. And a very, very thank you to Dan. John T's got a blog you can access. The link's on his Twitter. Sean, Dan and Beth all run YouTube channels, well worth subbing to. I think their links are in their Twitter. The links are in the description below. You can go below, follow these people. They do good things. And all we have to do now is watch the actual season.
Right.
Very thank you and much bye.